Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at something that didn't happen in my campaign, but was brought out by Roger Moore in issue 127 of the Dragon from November of 1987. It's Tucker's Kobolds. It's a kind of a legendary article. If you Google it, just Tucker's Kobolds, it'll come up. I'm going to talk about the article itself and what it can mean to your campaign. I actually laughed out loud when I read this. I laughed out loud when I reread this. It changed the way I thought about a lot of my lower level monsters and made my player characters a little more careful. So here we go. Tucker's Kobolds, page 121. Tucker's Kobolds from issue 127 of the Dragon from November of 1987. A lot of people have heard about Tucker's Kobolds, but this was an editorial that was out a long time ago, which is why I thought I'd bring it up. If you Google Tucker's Kobolds, you'll see this story. It's in the wiki. But basically what this was a DM named Tucker when Roger Moore was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And he ran a campaign, and in his dungeon, level 1 was controlled by kobolds. Ordinary 1 to 4 hit point kobolds. Easily killed, except they were unbelievably organized and used vicious tactics. Roger Moore describes as they would go down the corridor, the kobolds would lock the doors before and after them and then set the corridor on fire. Shoot at them through little sniper holes, have flaming debris set up ahead and behind the players, and throw flaming bottles at them, flaming bottles of oil. So there was no real way for the players to get through and come to grips with these guys. These guys would hit and fade away. They used guerrilla tactics. And I think that was the point. I think the DM was showing that you didn't have to be mighty to be mighty. Here you had a bunch of half-hit dice creatures in a game that were not worried about necessarily hitting you with swords and such. They were worried about just taking you through attrition. In the editorial, Roger Moore goes on to talk about how they had brought some mules with them to help carry treasure out. They had some NPCs with them. Well, the mules died in the first exchange. Later, the kobolds ate the mules. In the later exchange with the fire, the NPCs died. And as the party fled, going deeper into the dungeon, trying to get past these lunatic kobolds, more and more hit points were just sniped off of them. It had gotten so bad that they didn't know how they were going to get down into the rest of the dungeon where the real treasure was. They were anxious to face some demons that were down on level 10, but they had to get through these guys. This was a 6th to 12th level party that was terrorized by these little guys. The story goes on that they found an air shaft leading down. Lots of rope, spikes pounded in, down they go. They get down the air shaft. They go further than level 10 and meet up with a flaming demon. After a very lengthy pitched battle, the flaming demon accounts for half the party. The group is victorious. They've got their treasure. They're ready to head back out. The leader of the group is not happy. Everybody asks him why. He says, "You know we've got to go out through the kobolds, right?" So I bring this up because it's not my story, but it's a story that when I read it actually made me laugh out loud. I related to my group at the time. And then I copied it. Sometimes you just take a low-level monster and you go ahead and you make them a terror. I never had anything on the level of Tucker's Kobolds, but I have used in the past something like skeletons manning a ballista, not a ballista, a big old crossbow down the corridor. And anytime the player characters try to come down, I get a shot with it, and we get to see, if I damage them or don't. I've done it where they have multiple ones, so that every time the party starts advancing, they have to deal with this problem. It's a good way to keep players controlled and keep them guessing. They don't get too full of themselves if they've got weak monsters that are causing them problems. It can just be a good way to keep player characters on their toes. Just keep them from assuming that they're going to walk in and there's going to be a lich and they're going to gang up on them and the lich is going to fall down and go over. And that's something else that Moore addresses in the editorial. So just an interesting bit of D&D lore. is right there with the legendary head of Vecna. Go ahead and look that up. But Tucker's Kobolds was something that made me laugh when I first read it, and definitely inspired me to put a little more thought into how my monsters acted. So I guess this kind of ended up dovetailing with ecology articles also to make me kind of rethink these instead of just little bags of hit points running around. But they were people, creatures, whatever you want to call them, with wants and desires all their own, and ways to see that happen. So just an interesting article. I just wanted to bring it out for everybody. Tucker's Kobolds. That's it for today from page 121. If you liked it, please leave some comments below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.